Alright guys, I just kind of wanted to show you what's going on with these units here. This is just across the board with the 90s iconic classic radios. This one's out of a 93 Mustang, but this radio actually works, but it is a good example of what's actually killing these units. I want to show you here, and it's capacitor failure. Now you see these dark spots here, right here. You see all these dark spots? Then right around here is really heavy, right there. You see that? And then you got down here. Reminds me of like a leaking second story toilet where the water is just dripping over here and here and here, everywhere. It's just finding the low spots in the board, settling there. That electrolyte is leaking out of this capacitor, maybe this one too, even probably this one too. We got this one back here that could be even contributing, because you can see a little brown around that ring, that white ring. So they're leaking onto this board, and that's the electrolyte. Those dark spots are the electrolyte eating at the traces. They're eating them away. A lot of these will be open, like that one right there. That trace is gone. We gotta replace that. You go over here, it's more of the same. You can see right there, that trace is gone. It should look nice and green and shiny. And the electrolytes come out of this capacitor, embed into the board, and start eating away everything here. So we gotta sand all this back and clean it really, really well to get all the electrolyte off. And then repair all these damaged traces, just because these capacitors leaked out. They're like the motherboard's batteries, pretty much. And it always happens in the same spots. Over here, same story. You can see a little brown tingent right there. When we pull these up, you're gonna see what's going on underneath it. You can see, like over here, this one usually does too. You can see a little black spots here, black spots starting to form right around that post. So it's leaking kind of all over. And although the radio does work, I can assure you this is actively dying. And if we don't replace these capacitors, this thing will be done within a couple years, probably within a couple months, frankly. I wasn't willing to test this one. Apparently he says it works, but it's kind of hard to believe. I mean, it obviously doesn't work 100% with the amount of damage that's in here. But we'll get all these capacitors stripped out and show you again what it looks like. Thanks. All right, guys, we pulled out all the capacitors, maybe 25 of them or so, and this is where the story really unfolds, and you can really see what's going on underneath these capacitors. You can see right here in this corner, these two holes is where the two capacitor leads go into the board right here. See those two leads? You plug in like that, you can see that the bulk of the damage stems from right underneath there. You can see how it spreads out from there. And that's what leaking capacitors do to your board. So we just got to sand all that down, clean it with 99% alcohol real well, and repair all these damaged traces, put a new capacitor in there, and we'll be back in business. But that's just to show you guys, just because your radio works doesn't mean this isn't happening behind the scenes. And I'll get a close up like right there. That's a good looking, that right there is where another capacitor was. Those solder pads are still clean. You can tell that one wasn't leaking, but you go over here to this one, and there are signs. Look how dark that trace is right there. So that one's obviously leaking. And then you go up here to this one, and there's the two lead solder pads for this capacitor. This is a big one, and you can see this one's bare bright. It's copper. Look how dark that one is. So you know it was leaking out that lead onto the board. And that's probably what caused this up here. All these black specks are the traces being eaten away by the electrolyte leading. And you can see this one back here, nice and clean, bare, bright copper. That capacitor wasn't leaking, but this one right here, it's good side by side. This one right here was obviously leaking. It's all dark and starting to rot. And go over here, not so bad, a little bit. These are real good right here. That's a nice row. Nothing real bad there. And then you go over here, and this one right here, a little bit maybe, but nothing serious. Then you get down here. Oh my, look at that. That thing's starting to eat a hole in the board. You know, we got some major leaking capacitor damage right here. That trace right there is going to be gone. We're going to have to replace that trace. It looks like that one's got some damage to it there. Go over here. These are pretty good. And we go over here. This is kind of where I expect to see some more damage, and we do. It's kind of hard to see in the corner over there because of the shadow, but that one's kind of dark. That one right there, pretty dark. And we got some bare bright right here, and it still looks pretty good. All this is repairable, but definitely something that you don't want to put off too much longer. You know, at 20-30 years, that's the gold standard for these capacitors. It's kind of like a battery. You could say like a household battery is a few years is the gold standard, and you might see a new one leaking in the battery pack, you know, after 10 years. And that's kind of what you're looking at here is electrolyte capacitors. These right here will leak out like your Game Boy's batteries did and destroy your Game Boy, except they're destroying your radio this time. We'll get all this cleaned up and get you another video shortly. Thanks. Alright folks, we got this board all cleaned up. We scrubbed it with 99% alcohol, and we sanded down all the affected traces until we got bare bright copper. And most of these can be plated, and then some of them will have to be just completely replaced, like you can see the capacitor damage now really is where all this was a heavy area right here. You can see pieces of the solder pad have corroded away, but most of it's there, and we can attach to that, so it's not a big deal. It's just to show you what's happening and what's causing ultimately these to fail. And these all cleaned up real well. No major damage. That one was real dark, and it still had a little life left in it. We can bring it back to life still. And all these spots have been sanded down, cleaned, and we'll plate these. You can see one of them ate all the way through the trace right there. You see there's a gap. When you sand it down, it really exposes the problems like that. There's a gap right there in between these two copper pieces. That's where the electrolyte has eaten away that trace. So that trace is just going to have to be replaced. And then this one was real dark, and we still have some fresh copper there that we can build from. We move along. And this was the other real bad area right here. And you can see that the copper right there, the solder pad right there, it's completely gone. It's not there anymore. Completely gone. But it's one of those unique situations right there where there isn't a trace leading to that solder pad. The trace is actually on the bottom side of the circuit board, because this is a two-sided circuit board, and so it's easier to manipulate and come up with a fix for that too. And These all get played over here. There's a little bit. Not too bad right there. It's all cleaned up nicely. I'm just showing you how this is done though. Once we get all new capacitors in here, we get some of these traces replaced and the rest plated, this thing will be ready for another couple decades. We're going to replace these variable resistors too. They always give problems, and they actually only had a 1,000 hour service rating to begin with, so safe to say those are expired at this point. They always fail. The failure rate on these are probably like, in today's world, 1 out of every 3 are failed. And then the rest of these components, they theoretically don't have a service life, and theoretically will live on, theoretically forever. I guess eventually, like, something will go wrong, but in theory these things will last theoretically forever. I'll bring you back once we get this all fixed up. Thanks, guys. Alright folks, and here we have the finished product. We have all the traces repaired. We've plated them all, replaced a couple on the back side, and you can see, like right here, we fixed that broken trace. We added a wire here to bridge that gap, and then we also used a jumper wire on the back side to add a redundant trace, give it some redundancy. But yeah, she's looking really good. We're about 3 hours deep into her now. Starting to become a labor of love, but you'll have that. Also took the tuner out to replace. This is the AM/FM tuner. You saw it back here, kind of like this on the other videos. Goes in right there. And took it out to replace, you guessed it, more capacitors. I think that we put about 13 of them in there. You see there's about 40 capacitors total, maybe somewhere in that range. There's no more electrolytic capacitors in this radio, no more original ones anyways, so we've really given this radio a new lease on life. Now we're gonna go ahead and put this tuner back in, and then what this radio actually got sent in for was this tape mechanism. This tape mechanism wasn't working for him, so now we can actually get the real customer complaint. Now that we have this board repaired, and got to work on the control panel. It needs a new display. But we're nearing completion here. That's a good look on how it's done. You want it done right. That's how it's done right there. I appreciate your time.